The remarkable documentary Three Identical Strangers follows the story of triplets separated at birth only to be reunited by coincidence many years later. However, the tragedy that unfolds in the years after their meeting left a lot of questions about what happened to the brothers. Directed by Tim Wardle, the 2018 documentary spotlights identical triplets Edward Gorland, David Kellman, and Robert Shofran using archival footage, interviews, and reenactments. As the movie goes on, it's revealed that a sociological experiment was involved in their separation. Three Identical Strangers presents increasingly unbelievable events. The trio became a media sensation, in part due to the great documentary, and their story was made even more incredible by the revelation that it was no accident that they were separated. They were part of a scientific study of nature versus nurture. The brothers were among a handful of siblings set separated at adoption to see the effects of socio-economic upbringing on one's personality and future prospects. Though the experiment is over, officially, the lasting effects still reverberate, and where the brothers are now can be seen as a direct result of how their lives were puppeteered early on. Where Robert Shofran is now. Robert was raised in an upper-middle-class family. Robert Shofran talking to the camera in Three Identical Strangers. Three Identical Strangers reveals that Robert Shofran was sent to live with an upper-middle-class family when he was just an infant. This was one of the major parameters of the study performed by psychiatrists Peter B. Neubauer and Viola W. Bernard, who themselves were overseen by the Jewish Board of Guardians. Neubauer and Bernard specifically assigned the triplets to families of different economic levels. Robert received what can be considered the best situation out of all his siblings, at least in terms of home life stability. He was also the one to kickstart the three brothers finding each other. Unbeknownst to either of them, one fall, Robert began attending the same college that his brother Edward Gallant had gone to the year prior. After being greeted like an old friend on his first day on campus, Robert ran into one of Edward's classmates, who eventually realized that this person with Edward's face was not in fact Edward. Robert eventually met Edward, and they realized just how much they had in common. Their story then attracted the attention of the third brother, David Kellman, and all were reunited. Three Identical Strangers follows the trio learning that they share similar tastes in cigarettes, women, sports, and more. Since the events documented in Three Identical Strangers, Robert has slipped back into anonymity. He currently lives in Brooklyn and is married with 2 children. He is a lawyer but has stepped away from work after a motorcycle accident in 2011, via the tab. However, in 2018, the documentary increased interest in their story, and Robert and David have considered working as public speakers and participating in commercial opportunities together. The pair have appeared on a number of daytime talk shows since the documentary, and it seems they may be willing to further explore their confusing past, where David Kellman is now. David grew up in a working-class family. David Kellman talking to the camera in Three Identical Strangers. While Robert and Edward were the first of the triplets to meet each other, it was David who figured out that he was the missing sibling to make the group a trio. Once all 3 brothers were introduced, it became clear just how similar they all were. Even though David came from a blue-collar family, the lowest socio-economic class of all 3 triplets, he shared many of the same mannerisms, tastes, and interests as the others. In fact, the trio eventually decided to open a restaurant together and ran that for many years, as depicted in Three Identical Strangers. The friendship between the trio was not always perfect. David and Robert's relationship became strained at some point between the closing of the restaurant and the making of the documentary. However, the pair managed to mend their relationship and now spend time together and play golf. David has 2 children and works in insurance in New Jersey, where he resides. According to Variety, Ben Stiller plans to star in an adapted miniseries of the Three Identical Strangers, and David and Robert could very well lend their expertise and experience to the production.